Hey there, it's Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about some of the books that I read during April. And yes, only some of the books, because like last month, this month's wrap-up is going to have to be split over 2 videos, because I accidentally read 21 books during April. I'm really not sure how that happened. I think I really pushed myself with the readathons that I was doing, and I seem to have just read a lot. So I'm just going to talk about some of the books that I read, and then there will be a part 2 video where I talk about the rest of the books that I read. Who knows if they'll be close together when I post them, because I am lazy when it comes to editing. So of the books that I read, 11 were audiobooks, 8 were ebooks, and 2 were physical books. I had 3 2-star books, 3 3-star books, 12 4-star books, and 3 5-star books. So overall the month was okay, but I did end up with 3 2-star books, which is a bit meh. So let's get into it. The first book that I read was 50/50 by Steve Kavanagh. I believe this is book 2 in the Eddie Flynn series, which is the same series as the book 13, which you may have heard of. I really enjoy it. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy courtroom thrillers, but apparently courtrooms are just really interesting to me. So this book is about 2 sisters that both ring the police one after the other and say that the other one murdered their dad, and trying to figure out who did it and what's going on there. I found it really interesting. I couldn't guess who it was. Like, I wanted to say that I could, but I kept flip-flopping back and forth with who it was, and I ended on the wrong answer, so. If you're interested in a courtroom thriller, then this is definitely one to pick up. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was Into the Shadowlands by Isabella Lauren. This book was about a girl who found her family murdered by Fae, and then sort of ends up in Fae lands. It was very short, so I can't really say anything other than that. I think it was only about 56 pages long. It was for the under 100 pages challenge for the Aurelian Magical Readathon. This was one of the 2-star books that I read this month. I think it had a nice premise and some nice ideas, but it really could have been fleshed out a hell of a lot more than it was. 56 pages is not really enough time to do very much at all, and it did try to include a lot of different plot points that really needed to be expanded upon, I think. I also found that there was a lot of showing instead of telling, and there were tense changes and spelling errors throughout, so I think it could really have done with going through somebody to have proofed it just a little bit, because the tense changes were so jarring. I can get past like some spelling errors here or there, but when it like constantly switches back and forth, it was a lot, and I found it really difficult to read. So I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Grey Vale by Lynette Noni. This is book 4 in the Majoran Chronicles, the first book of which is Akane, and I think this might have been my favourite of all the books. Well, I'm kind of torn with this one and Dracora, but this one had a lot more of my favourite character in it, and I was just loving life whenever they were around. And I actually enjoyed how we were sort of travelling around the world and encountering different races of people and sort of seeing where the land lies for the thing that's happening. I'm trying not to spoil anything. Generally, I really enjoyed this book, and it made me laugh a lot, it made me smile, and then a horrific trauma happened in the book, and it's just overshadowed all of my thoughts and feelings. I was very sad. I didn't make a TikTok about it. I was painting my bedroom as I was listening to the audiobook for this, and I had my wireless headphones on, still kind of getting used to them because I have only just transitioned to wireless headphones. It's a long story, I'm afraid of technology. Anyway, beside the point, I'm painting, and then this thing happens in the book, and I cried so hard that the wireless headphone popped out of my ear and fell into a pot of paint, and I was like, it was very traumatic. So yeah, my headphone still works, but now it's kind of vaguely purple, and I like that it will forever remind me of this traumatic thing that happened in this book. So I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I really liked the book, but like, wow, it was a ride. Next up I read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and this is a classic. I'm sure many of you know what this book is about. If you don't, it's about the March sisters and their family. I don't really know how to explain it. It was fine. I think it gave me a lot of nostalgia because I had seen the film that had Winona Ryder in when I was young, and I really liked that film, and then I went to watch the Saoirse Ronan film, and I enjoyed that one, but it wasn't quite the same. I don't know, there was just some nostalgia for me in the old one, and reading this book brought back that nostalgia. I don't think I would rate it as a great book, but it made me feel like I felt when I was young, and for the most part it made me happy, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is one that I've been saying I'm going to read for ages and just haven't, and I'm glad that I finally did. I read this as a buddy read with Kayla from Crack Into a Good Book. It is a Hades Persephone retelling, and it sort of slots the gods into our modern day world, and I enjoyed how that was sort of incorporated within it. I think that Persephone got on my nerves a little bit because she makes some decisions, and I'm like, girl, please, think before you do, because wow, just some of the things that she did were not smart. I know she is meant to be a naive character because she has been sort of closeted away from the world, but also common sense. Please have some. This next sentence could be considered a sort of spoiler for something that happens in the book, so just wait until I put my hand down if you haven't read it and you don't want to know. But like, Persephone, do not swim in a river in the underworld. Twice! Anyway, I pretty much enjoyed this book. It was, it was fun. I would probably read more from this. I think the series goes on. I think it's from Hades' perspective. I think I'd just give it a little bit of a breather between the times I was reading it because I feel like it could be a bit samey. But overall I gave it 4 out of 5 stars and it was fun. The next book that I read was Ink Death by Cornelia Funk, and this is the 3rd book in the Inkheart trilogy. I have been procrastinating this book for a very long time, and Faye from Mystery Date with a Book and I decided we were going to finish this trilogy off, and we did. It was kind of disappointing. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars in the end, which is maybe being a bit generous for how much I actually enjoyed the book. I think the start was very slow, and for some reason all of the characters became really unlikable, and I'm really not sure why, because I liked them in previous books and I was like, wow, you're all making really sucky decisions and just don't think about anything before you do it, you're just doing them, and it was really frustrating. I think the latter half of the book got a little bit better, but I was still very just meh about the whole thing. Like, I've forgotten the fates of pretty much all of the characters and I didn't really care. I think that's really disappointing because I really loved Inkheart. Ink Spell was like, eh. And Ink Death was like, ugh. I just don't think I'll ever read it again. I think if I was going to recommend the Inkheart series, I would tell people to stop after reading the 1st book, because that book is kind of like a love letter to literary fiction, and this just wasn't. This goes on such a tangent and I just didn't end up enjoying it. So it's very disappointing. The next book that I read was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas, and obviously I absolutely love this book. I do. I'm not going to say anything else about it because I do talk about the series a fair amount, and I'm sure everyone on BookTube knows what this is about. It's the 2nd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I loved it, and I don't think I'll ever stop loving it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I want to talk about is The Stand by Stephen King. This giant, chunky boy. I'm so impressed with myself that I managed to read this book. Nearly 1,400 pages worth of book has been absorbed inside of me, and I'm kind of not mad about the size of it because I actually don't feel like it went on such a Stephen King ramble. I think a lot of the offshoots where we encounter a lot of different people and learn about their life story actually made the book a lot better for me, because most of them just die because it's a plague. The book is about a plague. It's not a very nice time for anyone, and I just think it kind of added to the whole global nature of it. It made it feel like it was a really big thing that was happening, and I really liked that. I think I definitely liked the beginning and the end of this book a lot more than I did the middle, and I think that's because I don't really like the people versus people part of an apocalypse. I'm just not here for it, never here for it in any sort of apocalypse thing. And I liked the beginning bit because it was the plague and the outbreak and how it was affecting everyone, and I liked the end because it was sort of a resolution. But yeah, the middle was very much the weakest part for me. I will say I really didn't enjoy how much ableism and racism featured in this book, and I know it came out in 1978 or something around then, so that was a lot more common language, but I really hated it, and as I was reading it I was like, wow, this is really excessive. So please be warned when you're going into this that happens. Trigger warnings for obviously death, plagues. If you're not ready to read something about a pandemic, definitely don't read this book. There is rape, there is murder, a lot of murder. It's just not a very nice time in this book, so if you're not prepared to read about common apocalypse based themes, which I hate to say that that's a common the theme, but you know, men. It's not a very good time for anybody in this book, so I would definitely look up trigger warnings before you decide to pick this up and sort of see if it's worth you putting yourself through. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars for the general feeling more so than the actual overall book, because I did really like the beginning. And I kind of like the end. The middle was still meh, but 4 out of 5 stars. Now I'm going to end this video here because I've got to drive across the country now, so that's going to be fun. Be on the lookout for part 2 of my wrap up because there are a lot more fun books to talk about. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!